Yeah, guys, before we move on to the Cavs, I want to remind you all that you can get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You guys can bet all different ways with quick bets, live game same parlays, exclusive prop bets, and plenty more. You guys can visit fanduel.com/UCSS, and you can shoot your shot over there. FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Was that an ad lib or did it really say shoot your shot?
No, it says shoot your shot. Reading that word
says
for
shoot your
word right
shot.
there.
Oh.
Earl's going to read it tomorrow when he's producing the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. You'll see
That's
for
right.
yourself. You can bet on Cavs games. You can bet on any NBA game. You can bet on anything with FanDuel. Make sure you send us the winning tickets, and we will feature them on the show. Let's talk a little Cavs now before we welcome in Jason Lloyd in about 15 minutes from spring training. The second half, and yes, it's not technically the second half of the season. It's not the last 41 games, but after the All-Star break, it's the second half of the season. Just bear with us.
Right.
Second half of the season, guys. Anthony posed the question to us. How much tinkering, how many changes do you want to see JB play with the lineups and rotations before the Cavs get to their postseason stretch? Earl, I'll start with you. Do you want JB to be aggressive in mixing and matching? Do you want to see him stick to one? How much tinkering should he do?
I want to
down the
see
stretch
JB
here?
Bickerstaff get creative, think outside the box, and come up with a plan to where you continue to work on your current starting five, get that solidified, make sure these dudes' chemistry is right. But now you start to deploy all these different lineup variations so that you can counter whatever any team throws at you come to playoffs. You alluded to this a lot. It's a much different game once you get to the playoffs. The game slows down a lot. The defense gets much tighter. And every single game, the opposing team pick a player who they're going to try to eliminate, right? And you might run into a situation to where Donovan Mitchell is not on, to where Darius Garland is not on. You got to have all these different lineup combinations and variations to be able to throw at an opposing team to be like, you know what happened to us last year will never happen again. Oh, y'all going to do this? All right, cool. Let me get my 1A out here. Oh, y'all doing that? All right, bet. Let me get this group out here. Oh, y'all think y'all slick with this? It's cool. We was working on this with this lineup as soon as we came back from an All-Star break. So I think that knowing that, I believe that the Cavaliers is going to finish the season as a top 3 seed, right? And I think that as you journey along, locking up a top 3 seed while stabilizing your starting five, I think is necessary for you to try all these different lineup combinations so that you can throw anything at an opposing team come the playoffs.
G. Bush, what say you?
There's two things I need him to figure out. I need their version of a death lineup. In the playoffs, there's going to be some times where you are going to want to exploit certain matchups, and you're going to need to put up some points in a quick fashion. I need them to figure out their 3-point death lineup where you got, maybe Isaac Okoro playing a 3, whether Sam Merrill is in there with Donovan Mitchell, as well as if you got a Strus, Sam Merrill, Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and one of the bigs. And can you get that lineup to where you now have an opportunity to play and maximize your 3-point shooting ability? Also, I want a defensive lineup. Somebody where you can place and make sure that Isaac Okoro is on the floor to help out on a Darius Garland. Maybe you might have to pair Darius Garland with an Isaac Okoro. You give up a little bit of something with the offense with Okoro, but you also keep people out of the paint with Darius Garland. So I think there's these small tinkering lineups that they want to do. And two, I think, and I'm not just saying this just because I'm saying this, you're going down a backstretch. This is a good opportunity to give guys like Sam Merrill playing time, to give guys like Imani Bates playing time, to give guys like Craig Porter Jr. playing time. Because guess what? If you're going to have this time, the Cavs are 1 or 2 injuries away from what happens if Darius Garland goes down for 10 games, 15 games. You need to get somebody to do some playing time. And think about it like this, McNuggets. Sometimes in the playoffs, you just want to spark.
Yeah.
Hey, come over here and let's take a look at the spark and see if you can hit a couple threes and get a spark off the bench. So I'm trying to see some of the little nuances, and at the same time, try to figure out these lineups that you can run that you're going to need against the Bostons if you're going to make a big run.
I like what G said about getting certain players enough minutes to see if they can truly be part of a playoff rotation or
Right.
not. Hey, Ant, pull up my graphic real quick. These are the Cavs' 5 best lineups this season in terms of net rating with 2 caveats. They had to have at least 12 games played together, and what's the other caveat with me? They had to play 12 games together. What do you guys notice looking at this? These are all their initials, by the way. Obviously, I couldn't write all first and last names. What do y'all notice?
Isaac Okoro is in every last one of them.
And Jared Allen, Isaac Okoro, and Donovan Mitchell is in every lineup.
Bingo. Now, before you freak out because Evan Mobley and Darius Garland aren't in any of them, do not freak out because 2 reasons. 1, it had to be a minimum of 12 games, so they are just naturally out of a lot of them because they missed time. And 2, when the Cavs went on their massive win streak and were blowing teams out, which is why some of these numbers are inflated, those 2 were injured. My point of showing this is we know 4 players who will be on the court in crunch time for the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley. We know 4. Who's the 5th? And in their death lineup, in their crunch time 5, who will that 5th player be? And you got a bunch of different options.
I'm going to tell you
if you go with Strus, it's a guy that you cannot leave alone. A guy that demands attention from the defense and provides defense, but he's an average defender. He's above average, but he's not great. You go with Okoro, who's their best perimeter defender, but still has to prove he can make shots in the postseason before they leave him alone.
He's been improved, though.
He has. Do you go with Niang, who's played in more playoff games than anyone else on the roster, who's a bit of a defensive liability in certain matchups, but from the corner, and I know he hasn't shot in the ball great this season, historically at least, he's one of the best corner three-point shooters in all of basketball. So you got the playoff experience, and you have a guy who's a dead-eye shooter from the corner. You go with Dean Wade, more size. You got 3 guys 6'9" or above, can guard in almost any facet. You'll have the height advantage, who's also a shooter, part of their best plus minuses. Or do you go with Sam Merrill, who's just simply the best shooter on the team? What I need JB to figure out over the last 28, 29, 30 games, whatever the number is, you know the 4 guys. Who's the 5th? And you can get creative in figuring out when to insert different guys in, playing with different matchups. But to me, that's the number 1 question JB has to figure out between now and the end of the regular season. You know 4 of the 5, but who's the 5th? And are you comfortable changing up that 5th depending on matchups? That's what I want to find out.
Or is it the fact that who's ever shooting better? Right?
Are you willing to go with some time? Yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, if Dean Wade starts off and he's that guy, the shooter, he's not hitting, George Niang comes in. If George Niang ain't hitting, hey, we might have to go smaller. Max Strus going to have to stay in the game. I think that is one of the things that JB is going to have to really, I think, get better at, is understanding in crunch time, what move am I making and who am I going to give these minutes to today, like right now?
And I don't have an answer yet. For the record, I don't know who that best 5th is, because those 4 players, the 4 main guys, haven't been healthy enough this season and in enough crunch time games to figure out what's the best matchup. And I would hope, and Earl, I'm curious what you think on this, I hope JB would go matchup dependent. If they got a guy on, let's say they're playing New York, for example, right? And they got OG, they got Bogdanovich, they got Randall and Mitchell on the court at the same time, you may need some more size. Would you be willing to go with Dean Wade even though he's not your best plus-minus guy in that situation? Or do you go with Okoro to guard Brunson? Do you think JB will be flexible enough down the stretch?
I hope so.
As opposed to just finding that one guy that every night, this is my closing 5?
I hope so. I think the best coaches are flexible. I think that once you assess the situation at hand and you can make the adjustment to whatever adjustments in the said moment, that's the best way to go. Ideally for me, I hope the dude who steps up and continue to differentiate himself is Isaac Okoro.
Yep.
Like the last game that he played before we reached the All-Star break, he took and made career highs in 3-point shots. You see the dude shoot the ball with more confidence every single time. He is the best perimeter defender that we have on this team. Me and Mike talked about this a couple Sundays ago. We have heard a lot about how hard Isaac Okoro works. Always the first dude in, last dude out, right? And for me, I appreciate somebody that's willing to put in the work, that's willing to grind like that. And he's starting to turn into a dude that was a top 5 pick and that you getting return on investment from, right? And it's simply because he's putting in that work. And if that dude in particular continues to do the things that he's doing and can prove himself come playoffs, that makes the Cavaliers way more dangerous than what they currently is right now before they even tip off on Thursday.
I think one of the substitution pattern, and I think people need to wrap their minds around it. I truly believe that one of the lineups that you're going to see a lot is if they go play the Knicks or somebody like that, you're going to see Isaac Okoro in the game. He'll follow Brunson around. Donovan Mitchell will be in the game as the point. You'll also have Harris LeVert in as a secondary ball handler that can get to the rim.
I forgot LeVert, but LeVert could be in that lineup
Right.
too. That was bad brain fart out of me. That's LeVert.
This is the reason why this even conversation even came up.
That was so
that's
cold.
a bad job out of me.
That was so cold. They both was like, oh,
so
Lord.
it's funny because you was talking about like JB, learning to adapt to the situation. And I heard this post conference a couple weeks ago where he talked about right now I got 10 to 11 dudes who deserve minutes. And there was a game in particular I cannot remember.
LeVert
Washington, you know exactly what I was talking about.
In the second half.
Like you got LeVert who's been balling and been doing his thing, but he seen someone else had the hot hand, and he didn't force playing Karis LeVert just because he had only played said amount of minutes.
Right.
And so to me, that's where JB has continued to show his growth. Right. I know people feel like, well, he stumbled upon it. I think he stumbled upon the growth, but hey, it is what
growth
it is.
Is growth.
This is where we are now. So
Anthony Davis stumbled upon growing 8 inches from his Cleveland State commitment to his Kentucky.
Yeah.
Are we gonna blame Anthony Davis?
No,
no.
stuff happens.
We haven't even seen, and we've seen Darius Garland not finishing games, but the last time we saw him, he had a pretty nice game. I thought he looked more like himself, but there are going to be times where he's not going to be able to be on the floor like that because, he's defensively,
Hey,
right?
speaking of Darius Garland, let me tell you something. No, in all seriousness, though, I got to give that dude his kudos because I felt like he needed to come off the bench in order to get his groove back, and he proved me wrong. Like, I should have been more patient with him instead of trying to microwave this situation. With each passing game, you've seen the dude get better. You've seen him, be more confident. You started to see the scoring come back alive. Remember the Darius Garland of last year who used to dribble, then find somebody? This dude is playing more as a point guard that's a facilitator and not somebody that's just out there dribbling the basketball. I just see a lot of different things before we hit the All-Star break that makes me feel like, okay, I was wrong. He didn't need to come off the bench to kind of get his mojo back. It just needed to be more patient with him as he was patient and just not forcing anything, taking the right shots, making the right passes at said time. But when you called off Donovan Mitchell on Valentine's Day, and you had that type of confidence in yourself that hey, I got this, that shut me up. You was able to find Joe Mojo in the starting lineup, and you didn't have to come off the bench to do it. So I got to give you your flowers. That's one of those things to where I'm not mad I was wrong about.
Hey, when you're wrong, if you doubt someone on a team you root for and they prove you wrong, it's usually a good thing.
That's a good thing.
The answer to their Jason Lloyd says he hates calling it a death lineup because that's a disservice to how good the Warriors' death lineup truly was. So I'm going to call it their crunch time 5. The answer to their crunch time 5 is if Isaac Okoro is still making 40% of threes in the playoffs, that's the answer.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Nothing else matters at that point. But we got to see if he can make shots in the playoffs and whether or not teams will guard him. Because I can promise you right now, Isaac Okoro could shoot 50% from 3 from now to the end of the regular season. Game 1 of the postseason, no matter who they play, they're going to sag off him and make him shoot. So he's got to prove he can make it. And to your point about Darius Garland defensively, there are going to be some weird defensive matchups where Garland is going to have to prove his offense is better than what he's giving up defensively. Right. And luckily in the playoffs, and this is where having Mobley and Allen is a massive benefit, he just has to funnel them towards the paint and into the runner-up and defensive player of the year last year, and Jared Allen, who, in my opinion, is a tier below Mobley, but in that same conversation of great, not necessarily even rim protectors, but just always in the right spot, help defenders. He just can't get cooked. And that's all I'm asking. You don't have to be a Okoro. You don't have to be Mobley. You don't have to be Marcus Smart or Tony Allen from back in the day. You just can't get cooked. And if you funnel guys to the middle, where you have Allen and Mobley and even, depending on the matchups, but Okoro waiting for you there, you can live with that. But they do have some tough matchups size-wise.
This might be a situation, though, with him to where, I agree with you, you can't get cooked, but his best defense might be his offense.
That's what I'm saying.
Because if Darius Garland can go get you 30, you know what I mean? Now your opponent exalting energy on the side of the ball
that's why he's always in the crunch time 5. He's always, and no matter how you look at it, unless it's a one-off defensive possession, 7 seconds left, Knicks have the ball or Celtics have the ball, He's got to be there because what he brings offensively, they just can't replicate.
I just like we talk a lot about defense, and I know defense matters more in the playoffs. I'm not gonna say it don't matter or I'm not concerned about it. I just know that last year the Cavs was one of the best defensive teams in the NBA all year round, and it didn't matter. And so at the end of the day,
their defense was fine in the postseason.
It was fine, but it didn't
score.
matter to like when we needed to go get a bucket. And so
Yeah.
even if he is a liability on defense, the fact that he can go get a bucket,
He's got to be on the court.
that's your best defense right
exactly.
there.
He's gotta
Just
be on
go
the court.
score.
And looking at the main competitors, like, if he plays Boston and Drew Holiday and Jaylen Brown, you're going to have a little bit of problem. Or if you play the Milwaukee Bucks, it's not even that big of a deal because on the other end, Dame's not going to
It's
do
New
it.
York and Boston.
Right.
Those are the two. And that's a tough matchup for anyone in the league. That's not a Cleveland-specific issue. That's they built their teams to be supersized.
Yeah.
And Jalen Brunson's tiny, relative terms.
Yeah.
The next 4 guys in the court are 6'8" or taller. Like, that's just a tough matchup to deal with.
And to me, the toughest matchup out of anything is the Knicks. I don't think about the Celtics because I think that you can almost get Jaylen Brown and Tatum to just start jacking up shots. And they're not going to take advantage of the fact that Porzingis is down there on a guy or catches him on a switch.
He's been so good this season.
And so I'm like, those dudes, those are the dudes that kill you. It's the Drew Holidays and the Whites and the Porzingis that I believe that have just basically those matchups the Cavs don't have very much for.
One more thing to watch before we pivot to your Black History Month spotlight. We'll bring Jason on. I don't think when the playoff rotation comes around, Niang and Wade will both be in it.
No.
It's one or the other. And that's going to be a hell of a battle between those two individually to prove to JB who will get those minutes in the postseason in that 8. And I'm telling y'all right now, they have 11 guys who could play. 12 if you count Tristan Thompson. Only 8 are going to play in the playoffs more than 2 minutes. You may get a guy for 2 minutes. Seeing which one of those two down the stretch is playing better and fitting better into their offensive system is going to be a fun little subplot to watch as the Cavs continue to go.